are you, Andrew?
I'm pretty good. How you doing, Ga?
Good. So you almost finished with school?
Actually, I took another gap year.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah, so I won't be finishing school anytime soon.
Okay, yeah. Good to take a break just to take a new perspective, yeah.
Yeah. I think maybe Isaac will be finishing before me.
Yeah. No, I think it's a long, long ways. You want to follow your step too, so.
For real? Like medicine or?
I think you plan to take psychology first and then medicine later, yeah.
Nice. Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, so how's things in Minnesota at the moment?
It's getting better. The weather is getting warmer. And the virus is still a lot, but going down dramatically. So the vaccine is going good as well. I think about 14% of the population had been vaccinated. So summer looking much better than last year, so which is good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In the US, yeah. So hopefully things will get better.
The Pfizer vaccine is also showing good results as well. I think 94% efficacy, so it's really high.
Yep. I think in Israel, I think they had one of the largest study, right? So they had 95. Yeah,
that was really big news. So I guess to our listeners, welcome back to another episode of Where Love Touches People. It's coming up to a new month, and so with a new month, we have a new theme. And so this month, we'll be talking a bit about happiness, which I think is quite a simple idea, but it can go a bit deep as well if we dig into it.
Yeah.
So today we have Denni, our beloved pastor, to chat with us a little bit about happiness, I guess more specifically with our vocation, in terms of our career, in terms of our work. So I guess when we're talking about happiness, Scott, what are your thoughts on finding happiness in career success?
Yes, that's a very, very topical question, and that is actually a very good question. So let's define what is happiness. Okay, so I think happiness in general, maybe it comes when you know that life is good, and happiness is a sense of well-being, joy, and contentment. So that's my thought on happiness. However, I think this probably I jump in a little bit that in career, I would argue that it's better to find a combination between purpose and meaning, in addition to happiness. I think we'll discuss this further, but I would argue that finding meaning and purpose in career, I think that should go hand in hand with finding happiness in career. Mm-hmm. So I think that's my overall thought, just to start the conversation today.
Okay, so would happiness be separate to finding meaning then? In I guess in your definition of happiness.
Correct. Yeah, because happiness can fluctuate. You know, sometimes you can be happy, sometimes you cannot be happy, and then in your career, sometimes you can enjoy your job, sometimes you cannot. But there are a lot of times where you cannot find happiness in your job, but you still continue doing because you find meaning in your job, because you know why you're doing what you're doing, despite the challenges. When you face challenges in your work, you know, sometimes you feel a disappointment, but you still can continue with the job because you find meaning and purpose. For example, Mother Teresa is the classic example. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's not a lot of happiness in the work, but she can continue doing what she's doing because she found purpose and meaning in what she's doing. And happiness is a lot of times is the result of finding the purpose and meaning. If you cannot find the purpose and meaning in your job, it's going to be very difficult to find happiness in your career. That's my first opinion about the topic. And again, this is very interesting, very topical, I would say. But there are a lot of layers underneath the happiness itself.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So maybe let's take a step back and discuss, I guess, the meaning of happiness that you mentioned earlier. So you said that happiness is, I guess, a state of well-being and contentment.
Yeah.
But I guess from a broader perspective, why is it, do you think, that we as humans, we look for happiness?
Correct. So I think it's a natural reaction. We expect to find happiness in everything we do. We expect to find happiness in our work. But I would argue that the end goal for our life is really to find purpose and meaning. And let me say again, what is purpose in a way? Purpose is a sense that we are part of something bigger than ourselves, that we are needed, that we have something better ahead to work for. And purpose is actually what creates true happiness. So before, and again, we go a little bit deeper. How do we find happiness in our career? How do we find this joy in our career? Unless we can find purpose and meaning in our work, it's going to be very difficult to find happiness in your job. Let me give you a few examples. There's a lot of reason. A lot of job seekers, then when they chase big paycheck, big money, they are less happy. There's a lot of study. After 2 years, those who value time and instead of the money, they are more satisfied with their life and their career. So and those people who are happier, they are not necessarily working fewer hours. It's not because they happier because they earn more money. They still work long hours, but they find a lot more happier because they're able to find meaning. I know why I'm doing this. I know maybe it's not ideal. This is maybe not the perfect job, but I can continue enjoying, find contentment, find joy in my work because I have a purpose. I can find a meaning in my work. For example, let me give you another example just to clarify. In a hospital, there are doctors working and also there are the cleaners working. This is an example, okay? So the doctors sometimes they are unhappy because they think I'm tired, I'm working long hours, even though the salary is way more for the medical doctors. They cannot find happiness because the doctor cannot find the meaning and purpose. While the cleaning service, when they're working sometimes long hours, a very hard job cleaning the hospital, but these cleaner find joy, contentment, and happiness because that person can find purpose. I know I'm doing this because I'm helping the patient so that they have a cleaning room. I'm cleaning this because people can get a cleaning room so they can get healthier. I'm working because I earn money to feed my family. I'm working this because I'm helping my children going through college. So the cleaner, they have more happiness. They have more contentment. They have more joy, not because of the money, because the cleaners know the purpose. So it's not about the type of job, whether you can earn millions and millions of dollars, but you cannot find happiness. But you can earn very little money, very difficult job, but you can find happiness and contentment because you can find meaning. You know why I'm doing what I'm doing. What is the purpose of my job? I know I'm talking too much, but that's just to give you a background of connecting between happiness and career success.
Mm-hmm. Well, so happiness, I guess, is strongly related to the sense of meaning, yeah?
Correct.
Yeah. So I guess for a lot of people, maybe for example, the people who are slaving away, in a warehouse or, doing, labor work, or maybe, doing office jobs or any sort of jobs. For people who find that they're becoming miserable at work, is it because that they're not able to find this meaning in their work, or?
Yes. Again, and I wanted to say that sometimes in reality, not many of us able to leave our job, let's say because a lot of us sometimes don't have the choice to work in the office. In a lot of situations, we are forced to work to do whatever we need to do to feed our family. So it's not easy just to leave. Let's say I love to be bloggers, for example, but it's difficult for a lot of people to just leave the job and be bloggers because they have to feed the family, they have to pay the mortgage. So it's a different situation. So it doesn't mean that you cannot find happiness. If at this point, for example, now you are working long hours, sometimes you feel you're stuck in your job, you need to step back and ask God, help me to identify the purpose of my working now. Maybe, and use that work to give resources to do what you love. And look that your work may be part of the bigger picture that I remember when I was actually, let me just give you an example. In the US, when I finished college, I couldn't find any job. So I worked at McDonald's. And McDonald's, they work long hours. You have to wake up like 4 o'clock in the morning. I was struggling, with the work, as you know, but we work at McDonald's. But, learning from my wife, learning from other people, my senior, my mentor, they tell me that even though you work for McDonald's, you can find joy and meaning because you work to support your family. You work to get some saving to pay for your college. You work so that you can send money for your family. You work to provide food on the table for your family. So that changed my perspective slowly. That is actually, it's not about what I do, but it's about find meaning in what I do. So you're not just working to long hours, but with your work, you provide for the family, you do some saving, you send your kids to college. And I think it glorifies God when a Christian work hard to provide for his family. And I know a lot of friends that I know, sometimes they work in a warehouse. It's difficult, but if you can step back and think that it actually glorifies God when you work so hard to provide, to make sure that you have food on the table, to make sure that you have clothing for your family, to make sure that your wife can buy the need that they want. It gives a new perspective that is actually there is a purpose, there is a meaning, and also you can do some saving and to do other things that you love. So if you are working in a miserable situation, in a place that you don't want to, and I would encourage you to step back a little bit and ask God, help me to see the meaning, help me to see the purpose of my work now. How can because your work contributes, and you meet people in your workplace, they might need your advice, at the warehouse, they might need your friendship, they might need you to pray. So wherever you are, you can always find me. I would encourage you to read a book by Viktor Frankl. The book is Finding Meaning. Viktor Frankl, he is a doctor. He was captured by a Nazi in Germany and then caught in that prison in Auschwitz in Germany. So you can imagine there is no hope, there is no purpose, and he noticed that the people that can survive in that Auschwitz, in that Nazi prison, are the person that can find meaning in that situation. I know as horrible as it is, but the people that can find meaning, they can find, you cannot control what people do to you. You cannot control what people say to you, but you can always control how you respond to that situation. You can always respond, the job that you're doing, maybe you can't change that. You're working in the warehouse, you're working out, but you can always respond to that situation.
Yeah.
Okay, that's talking about, what if you're working, it's actually not an ideal situation if you're working in a miserable places.
Yeah. But I guess that Viktor Frankl example,
yes,
that, I can't imagine anyone who would be working in a situation that's more difficult than his when he got caught by the Nazis, yeah?
Correct. And I think if you learn psychology, you might come across his book. I think Viktor Frank. I think if you learn psychology, you might come across his book actually.
Yeah. Wow.
And one more thing. And I think this is the problem as well in the society now. Is comparison is the thief of happiness. So when comparison is the thief of happiness, and sometimes what makes our work feels miserable is also because we compare with other people. We're comparing, we look at the LinkedIn, we look at social media, we look at other people doing better, and that also sometimes steal our joy. And this is one of the ways we should move away from comparing our career, comparing the success to others. Every one of us has our own success. Every one of us has own pathway that God wants us to do. So we should remove from comparing ourselves to other people. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no, don't be sorry. But yeah, thank you, God. So I guess for the people who might have trouble finding meaning in their work, or maybe they're comparing their work with other people, what sort of advice would you give them to help them find meaning in their profession?
That's a good question. I think first we have to learn, acknowledge your accomplishment, whether that would be big or small in your work, whatever you do. Sometimes we forget to acknowledge what we have accomplished. Look back, whether that was big or small, even though you work for McDonald's, and if I look back, people think that working for McDonald's probably, it's tough, but I learned so much about customer service. I learned so much about organization. I learned so much about managing people. I learned so much about dealing with difficult people. And that helps me now become a professor, teaching with the students, teaching with other people. It becomes so much easier because you've been trained to deal with. Sometimes consumer complain, they angry at you, they just yell in front of the restaurant. And actually that helped me strengthen my character. So to help you, first acknowledge your accomplishment, whether that would big and small. Look back, everything that you do is never wasted. And identify what really matters in your life. So when you are doing something that you don't like, identify what really matters. What do I'm longing to? So and that shape also the next step. Where do you want to go? And sometimes God allow you to work, difficult job, a challenging situation. Is really to identify what do I want to do? What do I want to accomplish in life? Mm-hmm. And sometimes that helps you prepare you for the next step in your career.
Yeah. Oftentimes, I noticed that when we look in hindsight, we can see the purpose of the things that we were doing at the time, yeah. But when we're going through it, it's quite difficult to see God's plans for us. Thank you, God. So I guess in terms of, when we look at the bigger picture of our purpose and happiness, so let's maybe talk about happiness in God's eyes, or God's idea of happiness. How does our profession or our career, fit into God's idea of happiness for us?
Yes, that's a good question. So I think if we look at Psalm 139, 139, verse 13 to 14, remember that you are God's handiwork. So every one of us is God's handiwork. So he created your inmost being and knit you together in your mother's womb. And Psalm said that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. So each of us is uniquely, God uniquely placed you in wherever you do, whether that's a good career and not good career. So that means you are shaped with your character, you are shaped with your genetic, you are shaped coming from your family to bring purpose to other people. You may not be able to see it, you may not want it to be there, but I was always encourage you that remember that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. You are unique. So wherever you are in the situation, always, God, how do I become a blessing to other people? If you are in a place that you don't want to, always ask God, open my eyes. In this, talking about the Christian perspective, God, open my heart, open my eyes to see how do I become the channel of blessing for other people? And let me give you one example. There's plenty of example. At one time when I was doing my PhD, and there's only a few people studying, but I asked God always use me wherever I am. And it's true that suddenly there is a friend of mine, another PhD student, struggling with the life and struggling with the purpose. And I just happen to be there, and I just pray. I just pray for him, and then trying to comfort him. And few years after, I met him again, and then he still remembered, Denni, thank you for that, short period of time that you pray, you pray for me and you encourage me. Mm-hmm. So I remember that. So wherever you are, even though it's kind of lonely, God, what am I doing? You feel like so, you don't know the purpose, but when you willing to open your heart, when you willing to ask God, give me a new perspective, open my eyes, and I believe that God will show you and use you in a way that you never imagined before.
Wow, that's awesome. Sometimes we tend to forget that we are God's creations and that we were wonderfully made for a purpose. And then we forget that there is always a meaning into what we're doing at this time. Yeah. The general purpose is always there, especially as God's creation. But maybe for some of us, we haven't discovered our individual, more specific purpose yet. Because for us who haven't found that yet, how can we live a more, fulfilling life?
Yep. So that's a good point. So, and I think before we continue to a specific, I want you to remember that the most important thing in our life is not what you do. So the most important thing in our life is not what you do, but it's who you become. So it's not about what you do, but it's who you become, and that will take you to eternity. So we are built to live in the kingdom of God, and career is a vehicle that God used to build His kingdom in our season. So that's the general. So with that in mind, and the most important thing, so don't feel guilty if you don't have the job that your dream job. Don't feel guilty if you don't find a successful career yet. So the most important thing in life at this point is not what you do, is who you become. The character, become the person, become the character that God wants you to do. So now to answer your question, so how do we know specifically? So God, again, looking back, we are fearfully and wonderfully made, because God has created us with the aptitude for particular skills and ability, and with the inclination toward a particular interest. So you can ask yourself with these few questions to identify really what your passion, to really what you're calling. So if you can fill in the blank, if everybody listening to this, or you can do, I am passionate about blank. Feel that. Okay, that's the first. I'm passionate about what? For me, for example, I'm passionate about teaching and learning. So I always love and enjoying teaching. I can spend hours reading books. I can spend hours research that I'm passionate about. So you can, all the readers, you can fill in the blank. Secondly, I enjoy blank more than anything else. I enjoy blank more than anything else. So again, so what do you enjoy the most? And that give you an indication of your skills and ability that God has given you. Maybe one more. Being or doing blank gives me immense personal satisfaction. So for me, being and doing research, doing teaching and reading give me immense personal satisfaction. For you, maybe cooking, some of you meeting people, some of you it could be a creative idea, drawing. It could be different thing. One more. I would sacrifice everything to be a blank. Feel that. So for me, let me give you an example. I would sacrifice everything to be a professor and then at that time I left my career, and then I pursued my PhD. I sacrificed everything because I wanted to be a teacher, to be a professor. So with that question, that would help you identify, if you don't know at this point, what is God wants me to do? What is my calling? So I am passionate about blank. I enjoy blank more than anything else. You guys feel that in. Doing blank give me immense personal satisfaction. Last one. I would sacrifice everything to be blank. If you can fill that in with whatever in your mind, that give you a clue on what God has put in your mind, what aptitude, what skill, what abilities that God want you to pursue further. Mm-hmm. Hopefully that helps you identifying. And at this point, I would also encourage, if you don't know yet, God in Proverbs 16:3, it says this: commit to the Lord whatever you do, and He will establish your plan. Yeah. So even though you don't know anything, just do something. Just do anything. If it's in front of you, you're doing this ministry. If it's in front of you, just doing a Sunday school. If in front of you, just doing a job at McDonald's like me, just do it. Because when you commit whatever you do, remember that God will establish your plan. Meaning that He will lead you to the direction that God wants you to go. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people actually, they start their life without knowing the purpose. And many people don't know. And start something, whatever you do with all your heart as working for the Lord. Again, another verse is Colossians 3:23. Yep. Whatever you do with all your heart. What God wants you to do is to live in the present moment. Even though you don't know the purpose, live in the present moment. Living in the present moment, you are fulfilling God's purpose. Mm-hmm. Let me give you one illustration. This is a good illustration by Pastor Jeffrey Rahmat that I heard like a few months ago. It's about playing golf, part 1, part 2, part 3. It's finding God purpose. For some people, they can go to directly to the hole. Yeah, you can hit one swing, you can go to part 5, knowing where you're going. Like Lillian, for example. See, Lillian knows from children, I want to be an architect, I love drawing. So he knows he continue studying or learning architect. But for me and for a lot of people, I don't know. So it took me a while. I go to this one, part 2, part 3, part 4, even though moving around, but I'm getting closer to my passion. Yeah. So again, if you don't know anything, don't worry. Just commit to the Lord. Whatever you do, He will establish your plans. The key is always to live in the present moment. Love what you do. Do your best, even though what you do now may not be ideal, may not be your dream job, may not be your dream career. When you can find purpose, your happiness will follow. Wow. Sorry if I'm getting too long on that.
Oh, no. Wow, thank you so much, Loko Denni. That was a really good illustration. And I think it gives a lot of comfort for us, because that even though we don't know what our exact, specific plans are, our purposes are, God's there, and as long as we commit our works to Him, He will guide us through His own plans. So thank you so much, Ko. We learned quite a lot today. We talked about how happiness and purpose or finding meaning, even though they're separate things, they're quite intimately linked. We learned that it's really not about what we do at work, but it's about the reason why we do our work that gives us meaning. We've also talked about how we were created wonderfully, and we were also fearfully made. That God has a specific plan for each of us, and that even though we don't know it yet at this stage, it's just about living in the present, committing all that we do right now to the Lord, that He will establish His plans for us.
Yeah.
Wow, thank you so much, God.
Yeah. Let Yeah, let me add. So because I made a mistake that I always think that, oh, there is ahead of me. I will be happy. If I move to that job, I'll be happy. If I move that career. And what I miss living in the present moment. I always think there is happiness somewhere. There is happiness, if I continue my master's degree, I'll be happy. If I continue my PhD, I'll be happy. So I always find other place to find happiness. And I think Lillian, remind me, you cannot find happiness. Your happiness is now. Your happiness is the present moment. And that's the same with the career. It doesn't matter where I go. If I cannot be happy now, wherever I move, I will not be happy. So that's why always focusing on the present moments, focusing on God, what is the purpose for me to be here? And when you focus on the present moment, when you believe that where I am now is where God wants you to be, and then you will, happiness, contentment, and joy will follow. I think if I can add that to conclude.
Wow. Thank you so much, Local Denni. It's so good to have the chance to talk to you about this today. I think it's real.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I've learned so much.
I miss you. I miss every one of you. Hope I can see you soon. Yeah.
Yeah. No, thank you so much, God.